It looked like somebody had been murdered on this mattress because it was kind of a similar color when it soaks into furniture. So in buying cars, I probably have two major influences, the angel and the devil on my shoulder, so to speak. The angel on my shoulder is my friend and business associate, John Sabo. We've been doing business for probably 20 years. And he is the type of guy that if he drives his car in the rain, he will wash it before he goes to bed. There is never any dirt on any of his cars ever. I'm working on him to try to ease up a little bit in that respect, but he has taught me everything valuable that I know, like washing my hands before touching a steering wheel and stuff like that. He's put the OCD into my brain, and I'm thankful to him for that. And then the devil on my shoulder is, of course, a tall man who used to hold the Cannonball record. He likes to buy cars that have just terrible histories. If a vehicle was an ex-employee of a Las Vegas building with no windows, that would that would describe the cars he likes to buy. I'm halfway in between because I really, really like to drive my cars, and I don't really like washing my cars, but I want them clean all the time. So I have this like inner struggle. Of course, I like to get good deals, but I also want to buy the nicest ones I can find. Well, me and John Sabo were at an auction. I guess because of a couple beers, he stopped being the angel on my shoulder, and I decided to buy an Ed Bolian type car. Now, this wasn't like a RM Sotheby's type auction or whatever. This was a auction, some local auction company in Pittsburgh that was selling off a bunch of cars from a guy who had a large collection of cars and also a body shop. So most of the cars they were selling off were like his kind of cast offs, the one he didn't want. Almost all of them had stories. There was a bunch of old Corvettes. They weren't matching numbers. They were repainted. In that mix, there was a Lamborghini Halpa with a bad Carfax. There was a Lamborghini Diablo with a rebuilt title and the entire engine bay just like spray painted silver, which most of the parts in the engine bay on early Diablo are silver, and it's not much better quality than spray paint. But this was redone by somebody with a rattle can, and they just did the whole engine bay. I did try bidding on that. I don't know why, but I did try bidding on that, and it went for too much money. And unfortunately, in walking around the tent, we stumbled upon a burgundy Ferrari 456 GT. I say unfortunately because I love burgundy. The other unfortunate thing was that it was a 6-speed manual, because if it was an automatic, I would have walked right past it. But burgundy and gated manual V12 Ferrari, especially from the 90s, that's my era, just, I don't know, made me want to make a bad decision. And of course, I thought I could pick it up cheap. It was the last car to go through the auction, which, we should have left before then. I was hoping everybody else had left before then so I could score it for a deal. I did get caught up in the bidding a little bit, as one does. You're in the moment, and I ended up getting it for about 50 grand, which in 2019 would have bought you probably the cleanest manual 456 GT on the planet, but we're not there anymore. I was celebrating at the time I bought it. John and I high-fived. This is awesome. We got a deal. The interesting thing about the car, though, what made it, I guess, more interesting than a mediocre burgundy Ferrari 456 manual, is that the odometer showed 970,000 miles. And I thought, well, that can't be real. So I ran the Carfax, and it appeared to not be real, but it was very high mileage nonetheless. The last report on Carfax was 180,000 miles, so still a ton of miles for a Ferrari. And then it mysteriously got a non-actual mileage title issued, which usually happens if you roll back the odometer, right? The number goes down. I've never seen that happen where the number goes up. Somebody hired somebody to roll back the title and they rolled it forward. One of those, you had one job type of things, and they didn't do it. So anyway, I bought a quote-unquote million-mile Ferrari, if we round up for charity. I did not have a plan for it. I was hoping that with the high miles, it would be serviced a lot and would be ready to go. And I did get a message from somebody who had serviced it previously, and they said, "Oh, yeah, we did service this car a lot, and you should be able to drive that car across country like tomorrow." I didn't want to chance that, so I had it shipped back to my shop. And sure enough, that was less true than the truth, I think, to quote Ed. The trucker rolled it off his truck, and like the entire floor of his truck was covered in red hydraulic fluid. It had soaked it so much that he had a mattress in the back of the truck that he had to pull out and throw away. Yeah, that's truckers don't use motels. It looked like somebody had been murdered on this mattress because it was kind of a similar color when it soaks into furniture. Needless to say, the rear shocks were leaking profusely, which is a common issue, and they are also tied into the power steering system, so the power steering was non-existent. And because the rear shocks were leaking, it gave it the involuntary lowering kit, and the rear was pretty much slammed to the ground. We had a spoiler alert on the dash indicating that the rear spoiler was ineffective. And golly, there's all sorts of noises coming out of the climate control system. The dash had more shrinkage than George Costanza getting out of the pool. The entire interior, I think, had been re-dyed, which a lot of these issues are not like have nothing to do with the mileage. They're just old Ferrari issues. You could buy a 10,000 mile car and they would have all the same issues because of, wonderful Italian hand built quality. But it had all of those issues and then some. It smelled like a washed up cigarette model inside. It was pretty bad, but it started and ran and shifted great. Other than the fact that the fuel injectors were leaking, so if we had driven it much more than the little bit that we did, it would have caught on fire. The valve cover gaskets were leaking. So because of these things, I figured, well, the last person that said they service this thing regularly maybe didn't, because when I asked for receipts or details, they didn't come. So I said, okay, well, while we're in there, we might as well do a timing belt and tensioner service and just get it all ready to go. It had aftermarket rims, and those were all bent. The tires were like 12, 14 years old and dry rotted. So I sourced some new OEM wheels for it. We are sorting through it. I don't know if there's much to do about the trim pieces that are falling off and the completely dry rotted window seals and the mediocre paint job and the fact that the windows don't even fit. I mean, there's no way you can go through an automated car wash in that. Not that you would anyway in a Ferrari, but a 200,000 mile one, it's probably seen its fair share of those. Probably could have seen a few more. It's every bit of disaster that I would expect it to be. Thankfully, I don't think there's any wiring issues or electrical issues because it wasn't a flood car. And it does have a clean Carfax and a clean title other than non-actual mileage brand. So it's seen a lot of miles without being wrecked. So all that to say, it's still a front-engined 90s V12 Ferrari in a gated manual. It's a really pretty car. I always had a soft spot for the 456s, very understated. They sound really good, and I am excited to get it going and get it driving. I don't know if the odometer even works, and if it does, I don't think I could put the 30,000 miles on the thing to get it over the million mile mark, even though it's not a million miles, but maybe somebody else will want to do that. I know the famous million mile Lexus took like 8 people to actually get it the last 10,000 miles because everybody was sick of driving it. And that'll probably be the case with this Ferrari, but it's still a cheap, clean title V12 manual Ferrari. I'm pretty excited for when someday, hopefully this year, it gets done, probably about the same time Freddie finishes his McLaren P1.
This month of VINwiki Car Stories is brought to you by Bridgestone. We've talked a lot this year about the Potenza range of tires for sports cars and supercars, but what I'm personally most excited about right now is the Dueler AT Ascent. It is their latest and greatest tire for on-road and off-road capability. I've tried so many tires for my off-road kinds, but this really seems like it's going to be perfect. It's got full-depth interlocking 3D sipes and it is their latest and greatest product, so it should give me all the off-road capability and wet and snow and everything else that I want to put it through, as well as much better road manners. So check them out as well as the whole range of Bridgestone products to find out what's perfect for your ride at the link in the description below, and look forward to more amazing content on VINwiki from Bridgestone.